Hey everybody, welcome to Bird Seeds. Today's an awesome episode. I'm really excited to bring on a longtime friend and colleague who's in the mortgage business. His name is Alex Nunemaker. Alex, introduce yourself.
Thanks. Yeah, Alex Nunemaker. I'm with Fitzgerald Financial. I'm a loan officer and a longtime friend of yours.
Exactly.
So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And I think it was Adam Hipp that originally introduced us to each other, wasn't it?
Oh, wow, it was. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah,
so I've recently kind of reconnected with Adam. He's out in Colorado.
Hi, Adam.
Yep, and he's been working on some stuff with me, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
And actually, I should put you in touch with him. He's working on something called cost seg or cost segregation, which if you have anybody that's buying like an investment property, it's probably a pretty cool avenue where you basically get to depreciate. So if you bought like an apartment building and had 10 bedrooms and it was all furnished, you're basically depreciating that entire asset over like 37 years for commercial or something like that. Cost segregation basically says, well, we're going to break out like what are beds and linens and blinds and things like that, and we're going to depreciate those at a much different schedule than real estate. It basically allows you to save huge on taxes.
Okay.
So I'll have to put you in touch with them so you can learn more of that.
All right.
But this is exactly why you never lose relationships. Relationships will continue to come back.
Keep on popping up.
Just be a good person and be helpful and try to help people, and it never goes wrong.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I met Alex. I'm going to take a stab here and say somewhere probably along the lines of like 8 years ago, maybe.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
We've done a couple deals together for sure. We've always remained friends. In fact, Alex has a hockey team that's, I guess, on hiatus at the moment that I've played for a little bit in between my back issues.
Yep.
The Mighty Puckies. Still have the jersey. It's awesome.
Quack, quack, and we all stay in touch. So
exactly.
Even if we're on hiatus, we're still part of each other's lives, and it's just like a cool group of people.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I appreciate it because like I'm way out of practice and from endurance, stamina, my back, all those things, and you guys didn't judge me at all for having 45-second shifts. Well,
hey, when you're as bad of a skater as I am, you're in no place to judge anybody. So
could be like me. So anyway, but yeah, so I'm really happy to have you on board here as a guest on today's episode. I just kind of like to see where these things go. I don't like to have a super set agenda, but I know one thing I wanted to talk to you about was something that I sort of observed, and I haven't really gone that deep with you, where you kind of decided to take a step back from hockey and from doing some like extra stuff just to kind of focus on your core values. I'm assuming it was just to get yourself back to where you wanted to be. So I'd love to sort of explore that with you. What did you do? Why did you do it? And, it takes a lot of faith to be able to take that step and know that it's for the better. So
yeah.
You want to dive into that a little bit?
Sure. And I don't even know what's going to come out of my mouth with this because I don't know if I've ever talked publicly or certainly not on a podcast about anything. But yeah, I think that we're at kind of the same point in our lives and in the same industry where you can get pulled in a lot of different directions, especially with kids. Add that into the mix, and then sometimes you can just look around and you can be like, what am I doing? Do I like what I'm doing? Do I like who I'm hanging out with, or whatever the case may be? I know I'm speaking very generally, but I think that experience is pretty universal.
And how old are you again?
39.
Okay, I'm 41.
Yeah.
It's funny, I had breakfast with somebody else today, and I think she's 45, but she said right around that 40-year mark, she went through something similar, and I did the same thing right around that 40, 41 mark. So I think this is some sort of like midlife crisis where you just take account of like, where am I at? What have I done?
Yeah.
And you realize that sometimes you're just on a path that was convenient and wasn't necessarily intentional.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough.
Yeah.
I had a kind of a crazy situation occur. I probably won't, go too deep in that, but real close friend of mine, it kind of blew the roof off of, our lives essentially. So it was a good starting point to look around and say, okay, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Where do I want to spend, my time? And I knew the first thing that I needed to do was take some time and space, which is really hard to do. So
incredibly hard.
Love hockey, love playing with the Mighty Puckies, but there was a time where I just knew that, okay, I need to create some space so I can kind of digest this. I'm not the most, I would say, emotionally intelligent. Sometimes I'll sit for months or weeks or days, whatever the case may be, and I'll be in a certain mood, and I won't even realize that I'm in a certain mood.
Exactly.
And it takes someone naming it to say, like, hey, like, you seem kind of down, and I'll go, hey, I'm kind of down. Or
I hear that.
You know?
I hear that, exactly.
And even though it's happening in between my ears, I'm not necessarily cognizant of it.
Yeah.
So it was just slowing down and saying, okay, I need to make sure that I'm taking care of myself, because if I can't take care of myself, I definitely can't take care of my family.
Right.
I can't take care of, people who are depending upon me in business. So yeah, you have to allow yourself the time to, whatever you're going through. We've all got life stuff that kind of gets thrown at us, and we got to stop and acknowledge it, work through that, and just take that next step, whatever that case may be. But it was taking a step back was the hardest part, because I think life demands that you just constantly march forward.
Exactly.
So
I had this sort of epiphany yesterday where it's like, I have a tendency to avoid just human nature, human nature, like something's going on. I have a very strong tendency to avoid it and use whatever tools necessary to avoid it, whether that's work or whatever it might be. And I sort of had this realization that, okay, yeah, I can hide from it, but it turns out that those feelings are, if there was Olympics for hide and seek, they're like gold champions, because they'll find me no matter what. It may not be in that moment, but they are going to come out and they're going to find me when I'm not prepared for them and when I can't really handle it. So, it's better just, to control it, have that emotional intelligence and know when you can dive into those feelings, but do it on your terms versus letting them find you later. Yeah. So I commend you for that ability to like realize what's going on and say, I need space. I need to give myself grace. So the first episode of this season, which is now season 2, was talking about how I gave myself grace during, and I didn't do this podcast for like 2.5 months. Yeah. When my mom got sick and was passing away, and it's like, I got to go to essential only. Like right now, I can only do the things that are absolutely needed of me that nobody else can do. And as much as I like this podcast, as much as I enjoy doing it and it's done well, it wasn't essential. And if I showed up for it, I wasn't showing up earnestly. I was showing up forced because I felt like I had to do it. Yeah. Not because I wanted to do it. So I commend you for recognizing that and realizing that. Yeah. Was it hard? Was it hard to do that? Really hard. You start to realize kind of what's going on in your head a little bit. And until you start to talk to somebody, I started to go into therapy and just kind of, that's a whole different experience for me of taking what's happening in your head and just kind of putting it out into the world. And then you start to process it a little bit. And then you're like, oh, okay. That will take you down different paths. You'll realize that maybe you've been in certain patterns. And it's good to have someone to bounce those ideas off of, to say, that's where I've come to the realization. Yeah, it is okay to take that time. It's okay to acknowledge whatever those feelings are, because then you can move forward with a clear understanding of why you're doing what you're doing. And it makes a big difference just to be able to talk to somebody. So it does. Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with that. Therapy's been awesome for me, for sure. And it's interesting. Trying to find the right therapist isn't necessarily easy. Sometimes you get lucky and get it in the first shot. I didn't. Oh yeah. And the first one was just like, what are we doing? Yeah. There's it's not just pal time it's you got to find someone who's a open slate, but also can provide constructive, either criticism when necessary, or call you out when you're BSing yourself, right? Yeah. When you're telling yourself lies to make yourself feel better for what you're doing, you got to have somebody that's willing to stand up and be like, no, that's not right. Yeah. Yeah. My first guy was like a Freudian, so lay on the couch facing the other way and talk whatever comes up. Yeah. So yeah, that's just a waste of time. So it was. But I found I have somebody great now that have been helpful. Yeah, for sure. Trying to think where. It's been a cool time of not only just stepping back, but reconnecting also with things that I love doing. Because
again, in this business, you could fill up your time endlessly with tasks.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't necessarily even need to be doing those things. No. But if you're running away from feelings or from situations, you could just, I'll join the avoidance team or the procrastination team of like, oh, I can't do that because I'm busy over here doing this.
I'm organizing my pens in my desk.
Yeah. So
because that matters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, just reconnecting with things, music and, fitness and all those things that, were at one point, a huge part of my life, and for whatever reason, to kind of dropped off, and to kind of reconnect with those things has been really cool to do as well.
Yeah, so. I mean, I go back to the theme of intentionality. Mm-hmm. Like, it's really easy to fall out of like the things that we know we need to do when we stop making them intentional and we stop prioritizing them. So I think it's really easy to lose the priorities that we want to have in life that are better for our life, and just sort of fall back to those things that are easy. Mm-hmm. And if you're not intentional in what you're doing, it's really easy to fall off that track. So one of the things I started doing, and I'll share with you, maybe it helps, maybe it doesn't, but I created a intentionality checklist. So on my intentionality checklist, it's a daily checklist that I go through, and it's the things that are not work related, they're not family related, they are mental health, well-being, me, core related, that I want to do on a daily basis. Now, I also know that if you got to give yourself some leeway, and 7 days a week may not be realistic to do all these things. So I actually target 5 a week. Mm-hmm. So I list out all 7, but my goal is to do each one of these things at least 5 times a week. What do I have on my list? And I think it's important to put it on your own list, but I have walk or move in some capacity. Mm-hmm. So, I have some pretty bad back issues. So walking is probably the best and really the only exercise I can do consistently. Mm-hmm. So walk for 20 minutes a day. Yeah. Treadmill outside, doesn't matter. Do some sort of yoga, meditation, something that's quiet that I can really get in touch with my own thoughts. Mm-hmm. Read. I'm getting back into reading. I listen to a lot of podcasts in the car. I listen to audiobooks. But there's still something about sitting down with a physical book in your hand.
Amen on that.
Turning the page. Yeah, it's awesome. And these are in no particular order. Organize my day. So I like to, on Monday, it's organize my week. I like to look at my week and go, okay, what are the things I need to do in the week that aren't already on my calendar? Mm-hmm. And that includes all these tasks here. That includes family things. That includes, I do cryotherapy quite a bit. So that's not a scheduled thing. I just pop in and do it. So what days am I going to do that, et cetera, et cetera. Hydrate. Big believer in hydration. So gallon of water a day. Did I do that today? Did I not? And then affirmations, which are the hardest thing for me to do because I feel so cheesy. But they're so effective. Yeah. You feel like start smiling or whatever. And gosh darn it, people like me.
Looking in the mirror, it's okay. Exactly. Am I the best? No, but that's okay. Exactly. Because people like me.
But even if it's just an affirmation of your intentionality, right? It's just an affirmation to say, I am committed to my schedule. Mm-hmm. That's not really saying anything. But it is, because if you don't say I'm committed to my schedule, then your schedule means nothing. Mm-hmm. So they can be super simple. So that's one thing I'm trying to work back in. I lost this for the last quarter of the year, basically, and I'm trying to get it back in. Yeah. And then realizing that when you set these goals, and I have weight loss goals as part of this, and so on and so forth, and then you just got to realize life throws you curveballs. That's what's going to happen. I got really bad food poisoning on Tuesday night. Mm-hmm. Like really bad food poisoning. And today's Friday for anybody who's, because we don't push this live. Today's Friday. So, second half of the day, yesterday was the first time I kind of was back to some normalcy after this food poisoning. Yeah. Well, yeah, I didn't do anything during those days. And I can't feel bad about that because I couldn't control the fact that happened. Yeah. So I can't look and go, man, I'm not going to hit my goals this week. I'm terrible. Yeah. No, but I can control today. Yeah. Which is my back to normal day, right? So, control the controllables. Don't try to control what you can't control. Yeah. I think it's super important.
So Nick Saban just retired, and I hate Alabama, but you have to give it up for some of his quotes. Some of his quotes are incredible. Yeah. Like, the man, there's a reason why he was successful, and the one that he always talks about is the process. Right. And I think with all of these, particularly right now in January, everybody's got the goals. So everybody's saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, blah, 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 blah. But instead, throughout this, I'll call it a journey. I just threw up in my mouth a little bit saying that, but
you're going to post your accolades next?
Oh yeah, totally.
How many ones you did in the last 24 hours?
But instead of concentrating on the end result, the thing that Nick Saban preaches is that you have to fall in love with the process. And it's so true. Like it's not about and like you'll eventually get to wherever it is, or at the very least you'll get way further than where you would have if you weren't intentional about stating what your schedule is or what you intend to do.
Correct.
But if you love the process, then that's your reward in and of itself.
Exactly.
And that's like great. That's gold right there.
I mean, that kind of parallels to the old saying, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, right?
Yes.
And the process is what we do.
Yep.
Yeah, on that note, I like to, what's the old saying? Aim for the stars, land on the moon. Mm-hmm. So, like, I always like to have my shoot goal and my real goal. Mm-hmm. And if you miss your shoot goal, but you land on your real goal, that's awesome. Like, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Right? But if you really aim here, you're going to fall short of that, and then that's really short.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for sure. Yeah, speaking of Saban, and then you got Belichick and Carroll that all retired. Don't you feel bad for all those Yankee fans? I read that today. Like, that's so good.
Someone do a check on LeBron.
Yeah, right? Seriously. That's so funny. That's so funny. So who do you think is going to be the next coach of the Commanders? And I just opened my mouth a little bit saying that name.
Well, I'm hoping it's not Ben Johnson. He's the offensive coordinator for the Lions, and I love that man.
Yeah.
He's done so well with Jared Goff, and Jared Goff has gone publicly and said that he loves and he credits a lot of where he's at due to Ben Johnson. But, I mean, that dude, he's going to get a head coaching job. So if they're smart, they would hire him.
Yeah, so that's right. I forgot you're a Lions fan. So we are very similar in our sports woes.
Yeah.
The last
no one can
decades.
ever say that we are not loyal.
Correct. I use that in listing appointments all the time. When I see like some Ravens, I'm like, well, I need you to know I'm not a Ravens fan. I'm a Skins fan. But you know what that? Or I can't even say that anymore. I'm a Commanders fan. I'm a Washington football team fan. But you know what that means? I am loyal to a fault.
Yeah.
I got your back.
I am just a glutton for punishment. So let's do this.
Exactly. But yeah, I forgot that word.
Who do you want to see? I'm curious.
So I would love a younger, awesome, go-getter, newer coach that doesn't have that experience. I don't think it's the right move for the team today because we're starting from scratch. Like, this is true fire everybody, start over.
Yeah.
And the new ownership group has a track record of really doing the right thing. The rumor that I've heard is Jim Harbaugh.
Whew.
It's hard to fault it, but it's hard to love it at the same time.
I think he's great in the college ranks, but I think that act will get really old at the pro level.
Yeah, it could.
Like you can be that tyrant at the college level because these people are gone in 2 years, 3 years. In the pro level, these are grown ass men.
It's true. It's true. I hope it's not Belichick.
Oh God.
And that's weird to say.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's necessarily washed up and has no life left on him as far as a coach. I think he'll change the scenery and he'll do really well. I just don't know that I want, A, if it is successful, to be like, oh, it's because of Belichick.
Yeah.
And B, I just never really liked the guy.
Yeah. It's going to be hard to turn that switch, right?
Exactly. I've also heard, and I can't think of his name, the offensive coordinator for the Ravens. Somebody that's...
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember. Can't think of his name, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I've heard, and that would be a good one, although, again, another person that doesn't have experience being a head coach. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to retread washed up Ron Rivera again.
No.
Not that I dislike Ron Rivera. He was handed an impossible situation.
You just came from that, and Ron Rivera, I feel really bad for him because, I think he was doomed from the beginning, unfortunately. I think he's a really good coach.
Agreed.
Honestly. But he proved that in Carolina, but it's all about circumstances, and this was not a great
No, he was doomed
fit.
from the start.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was set up to fail, for sure. That's awesome. So we talked football a little bit. So in hockey, are you a Caps? Is Caps your team? Yeah, awesome.
Caps all the way. They were the ones who got me into hockey. I'm not a lifelong fan by any stretch of the imagination, but I have to credit OV, coming along and making hockey really exciting in the area.
That's awesome. When did you start playing hockey?
I didn't start playing hockey until maybe 10 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you were like 30-ish, give or take.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
The Skate Frederick had a program for literal beginner hockey. I had a friend who was wanting to play hockey his whole entire life, so it was just an excuse to get on the ice. So that's awesome. How I learned how to skate. I couldn't even skate.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I grew up playing like middle school and high school. My neighbor across the street played hockey and was really good. So we would play roller hockey in the cul-de-sac, and then that's kind of what got me into hockey. I think 7th grade, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. And then played high school hockey for River Hill in Howard County. And then went to college, and it was an arts college. There was no sports teams. I was broke. I couldn't afford hockey, so I just stopped playing completely. And I had an intern that actually lived in my basement here as a friend of the family. And he came in, and he was on a full ride or half ride, or whatever you call it, highest scholarship you can get as a hockey player up in Vermont. And said, yeah, you can live in my basement, do this internship, but you got to get me on the ice while you're here. And he did. Got me back out there, and I played a little bit, and I played for a team in Laurel for a little bit, and I played for you guys for a little bit, and right now...
Is it like riding a bike?
No.
No.
No. Well... the extra 60 pounds that I have on me since I played in high school, that's probably the big issue.
It makes a difference.
It does.
Knees are starting to ache a little bit. Yeah.
Exactly. In my back issues, it's the leaning forward position that just kills me.
Yeah.
It's that SI joint, lean forward. But I've made huge strides in the back stuff. So I'm still hopeful that I'll be able to kind of get through all that.
Yeah.
Get the weight off because I can start moving again and then be able to get back out. That'd be awesome.
Hockey has made me realize how inflexible I am.
Yes.
Because you'll go through skate. They're like, okay, open up your hips. And I'm looking at like, I can't do that.
That's funny.
What you are doing right now, which looks incredibly easy, is very difficult for me.
So the funny thing is I was recently diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
So Ehlers-Danlos is a hyperflexibility of connective tissue disorder. So, and there's different ranges of it, and thankfully I don't have it terribly, but basically your muscles, your tendons, like all the connective tissue in your body are extra flexible. So the test is like being able to bend your thumb back all the way. Like I can take my toes all the way back on my all the way back. I can twist my thumb upside down.
Look at you, you're Gumby.
I am Gumby. And where that's sometimes good is, I can move, I can flex. But you go way too far without knowing it. And then your muscles get all angry. And basically what it means is that if I didn't, because nothing has really shape to it, if my muscles weren't always active, I would just be a blob. Because there's nothing holding structure together. So my muscles are always locked. And therefore they get no break. Therefore they get sore and tired really quick. So working through that is something that I'm hoping will allow me to take the benefit of being hyperflexible without the downsides of it.
There you go.
But it's a process. And you got to love the process,
You
as you
gotta
said.
love it.
Exactly, just as you said.
It's a process of self-discovery.
Yeah. So don't go deeper than you want to go, but going back to like realizing it's time to set boundaries and do something different and take it back to the core essentials and then build back from there. Were there any surprises, like something that you thought you were going to really look forward to getting back to that you don't want to get back to? Or things you thought you weren't going to want to do that you actually desire doing?
I think it's... I've realized how loud my life is. And by forcing myself to relax, meditation, stretching, I realized that if I just sit in a room and I'm told to empty my mind, that's super hard for me to do. I almost get nervous with emptiness. But it's been pretty surprising how addicted I think that I can be to my phone the notifications or whatever it is. So
it's that distraction. It
becomes avoidance. Almost a necessity for me to create those spaces because it is constant. And I think that's something that has developed over the course of time. My inability to just clear my mind and have it be something that I actively have to work against has been really surprising for me. I don't really think that there's anything that I haven't enjoyed, honestly, because I think it's been all work or family activities, just like the busyness of it. Not so, I enjoy those activities, but I'm on a schedule, I'm doing this, getting off that, treadmill, so to speak, and allowing myself to just kind of relax and also not beat myself up over it. has been pretty big for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I also struggle with that like constant noise and like distractions go away. And I'm like, well, now what? Now what? Now we gotta go, blah, 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 and then the mind just goes a mile a minute. So I started doing acupuncture, and I do it once a week, and people always ask, does it help? I don't know. It's an hour where I get to meditate. So yes. Like, I don't know if the needles do anything, frankly. They don't hurt.
Yeah.
It's not going to hurt me. But that hour of quiet that's built into my schedule, that's awesome. And I've had some wild meditation experiences. But one of the things that I have always found to be like, well, let me take that back. One way of meditation that I heard that I've implemented has been super effective in my mind. So the idea, so if you go to meditate and you get all that noise and you're like, okay, focus on your breathing and breathe normally and just acknowledge your breath, just be aware of it and quiet your thoughts. And it's okay if a thought comes in, you just gotta acknowledge it and push it aside. It's still really hard. If you ask yourself, your brain, one simple question, brain, I wonder what your next thought will be. You wind up in an endless circle because your brain can't answer that question. I wonder what your next thought will be. Wonder what your next thought will be. Wonder what your next thought will be. And then you go into meditation. It's like a super hack. It's awesome. So I would try that if I were you.
I will.
Next time you're having trouble. I use an app called, I'm going to forget the name of it. Insight Timer is the name of the app. And it's a meditation app. And I'll throw my AirPods in when I get into bed a lot of the times when I'm going to sleep and put on a sleep meditation or just a 10-minute, slow down breath work kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it works great. It really does. And I started doing it now. You get those 3 o'clock, the witching hours or the ghost hours that they call it when you wake up. The anxiety's going a mile a minute and you're like, I don't know what to do. Instead of fighting it, I just throw the AirPods in and put on the meditation. And it works really well just to bring yourself back down.
The new Andre 3000 album is perfect for that.
That's awesome. Yeah.
It's, I was like, I don't know what I'm listening to right now when it first came out. But then I was doing kind of like a stretching meditation session and I literally turned off the lights, I put the headphones in and I started listening to Andre 3000. I was like, damn, this is good.
That's awesome. I'll have to try that.
So yeah, if you want to fight away those 3 a.m. demons, Andre 3000 will do it.
Why is it always 3 a.m.?
I don't know why.
It is, right? Yeah. It's always 3 a.m. It's like you wake up, I know it's 3 a.m. before I look at my phone on the nightstand. It's crazy. Yeah, so when I first got a business coach, and my wife kind of really pushed me into getting a business coach, and I was a workaholic. I mean, 80 plus hours a week, nonstop. Well, I was catching myself sleep emailing. So, like, I'd wake up in the morning and I will have sent emails while I was sleeping. And they were coherent. They were good. Nothing bad. But, like, I woke up in the middle of the night while I'm sleeping and worked. So we started this thing where the phone had to be out of the room. And now it's back in the room, but I've done a much better job of, like, putting it on the charger, being done with it.
Yeah. I try to physically remove it if I can. And if my wife listens to this, she's going to roll her eyes so hard because there's going to be good times and there's going to be bad times.
Exactly.
But it's about just acknowledging it for what it is. And sometimes you're going to be good about it and sometimes you're just not. But as long as you're honest with yourself, I think is the important thing. But yeah, just literally physically removing it from not having like an Apple Watch that gives you notifications. But again, intentionally removing those distractions, even if it's for an hour or 2 hours, has been huge. We've got kids the same age, and I don't want to wake up 10 years from now and realize that I spent 5 years of my life, literally, if you take a look at the usage time, staring at my phone.
Exactly.
For no reason.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah, one thing I struggle with, and I'm moving in the right direction, I think that's the key. Like you said, your wife would roll her eyes, and mine would do the same. But it's the intentionality. So what direction are we moving towards? What do we want to do? And it's not going to ever just be an act and we're there. It's a process to get there, but you have to love the process, of course.
Yeah.
But it's like I have a hard time being in the moment. Like when I'm working and I'm not with family, I feel guilty that I'm not with my family. But when I'm with my family and I'm not working, I feel guilty that I'm not providing for my family. And I'm not working. And it's just that it's a really hard conundrum there where it's like, okay, those are both things you need to do.
Yeah.
And you're not doing either of them very effectively when you're just worried about the other one.
Right.
But if you could separate them, you could be more effective in each one.
Yes. And there's tons of people who make a lot of money preying, I think, upon that dichotomy of we're in January where everybody's setting their goals, and my feed on social media and in my inbox is crush your goals working 2 hours a week and spending all this time with your family. And I'm sure there's tons of people who go, that sounds great. Oh, right. And if you could do that, of course, everybody would sign up for that all day long. And then the others are, exercise 8 hours a day, lose 50 pounds, crush your business goals, and kick ass, exactly. Content, and you're just like, yeah, I like the sound of that, and people will just shell out money for that. So there's a happy medium in there, and that line is fuzzy. Oh yeah, and it's always going to be fuzzy. And we're talking about spouses. I think the thing that we've always had to work through is just acknowledging that sometimes those lines will get crossed a little bit, and it's about us making the right call in that moment of whether it truly does need to cross over in that, or can this wait until tomorrow? Right. More often than not, it can wait until tomorrow. Yeah. If it's 7:00 and you're at your kid's practice, that's your kid's time and they need your attention. Right. And that emergency is truly not an emergency, and it could be just as easily handled, probably better, because you are 100% committed to whatever needs to happen at that point at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Well, and I think it all comes down to our ultimate goal is leverage, like being able to have the person that can handle that when you can't. And especially for a menial task. Like if I reached out to you at 7:30 at night and I'm submitting an offer, there's a deadline at 9 p.m. and they need an updated pre-approval letter, it's not an emergency, but we need that letter. It's time sensitive. We need that letter, yeah. Right? And then now that's not going to take you more than 30 seconds. Right. But if you have an assistant, you can just say, hey, do me a favor, send Joe this letter. Boom, boom, it's done. Yep. So that's where I feel really good about where I've gotten my business is I've delegated almost everything except for the actual job that I have, which is prospecting and selling. Yeah. Everything else I've pretty much delegated out, and my clients are using me for what I'm there for, which is advice and negotiating and doing all that.
I love the power of video for a lot of that. It's not maybe delegation in the traditional sense, but I realized a long time ago that 90+% of the questions that I get are the same questions. And especially in this day and age, people want the information when they want it. They want to consume it when they want it. So why wouldn't I put the things that I know, the knowledge that I have onto video and allow people to peruse it whenever they want, So video has been a game changer in terms of time management for me, in terms of just making sure that people get the information that they need, and I'll be able to fill in any gaps. Yeah, exactly. But video is so powerful.
Yeah. One thing I intend to do for my business, and I just haven't done it, whether it's time or priority or whatever, is do the same thing you're doing. Like the questions are almost always the same. Shoot the video, answering the questions, bring the team in, delegate the videos, and then create a library, like a searchable library. So whether that's on YouTube or Google Drive or whatever, like every question that you could possibly have is here. Yeah. And even to the point of like explaining the contract that they're signing. Like just do a hypothetical explanation of the entire contract, 20-minute video, all 65 pages or whatever it might be. Get that out there so that if they have a question what they're signing, certainly I'm happy to take the call, but they can also just hear what I had to say about what it means.
I don't know if you get tagged in these, but the ones that kill me are the Facebook community of anybody know a good realtor, everybody know a good lender, and it's just you know everybody's cousin and friend and blah blah blah. This person is the best. This person is the best. So I created a video essentially for that, and because what does that really mean? And I don't really know how constructive those posts are. Really, I don't know how they end up choosing them, but I know that I've gotten more calls by offering a solution right there and saying, "Hey, here's a video on buying your next home," or here's like the top whatever it is. So. Do that instead of just saying, I'd be happy to help you.
Right, exactly. Sure you would. If you wouldn't be.
You and 100 other people
Exactly. If you
would be
wouldn't be
very
happy
happy
to. Exactly. Then what are you doing? That's awesome. Yeah, that's good. Video is incredibly. I fought it for so long. Mm-hmm. We all don't like the way we look on video. We don't like the way we sound. And you just got to say, you know what? Oh, well.
Yeah.
Nobody else cares. Everybody's worried about their reflection in the screen, not what you look like. Right. They're always worried about themselves.
I found my first hater on TikTok.
Nice.
And that's when
means you're doing something.
I'm like, well, I've clearly made it because someone hates me now. And they just said, I had this like really good video on like current market conditions, blah, blah, and then the person's response was, okay, conehead. I was like, that's hilarious. Thank you. You have to have a sense of humor, you know?
I got in like a verbal discussion, if you will, with a Penguins fan at a Caps game a couple of years ago. And he called me out. He said I was short and I was bald. And I'm like, thanks for making fun of me for things I have no control over.
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome. Those are genetics. I'm making fun of you because you're a jerk. You make a decision to be a jerk or not. Awesome. You've proven your point.
Penguins fans, jeez.
Oh, I don't even go anymore. When I get those games, I sell them or give them away.
Oh, really?
It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
Not worth it. They're terrible.
Ever increasingly I'm a fan, but I'm not one of the, like, I don't understand people who get in fights at games.
No.
Why?
Right.
None of these people on the ice or on the field care whether you and I lived or died, whether
we were there
anything
or not.
happens.
Exactly.
Like, they are barely aware of our existence, if at all. Why would I get in a fight over this?
Exactly.
It's insane.
Exactly. Yeah, in this particular case, this guy was being a horrible human being, not a horrible fan.
Just
awful. Just the things he was talking about were just disgusting. It's just gross. I called him out on it.
Yeah. Good for you.
Well, maybe. It was funny. I'll tell you off air what I actually said to the guy. It was probably the best joke I've ever had in my life.
I think I've heard this story before.
Yeah, it's a good one. But yeah, that's awesome. Well, we'll have to go to a game together.
Sounds great to me.
I got tickets, so we'll have
All
to
right.
go. Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. I always ask a couple questions before we jump to those questions. Do you have any other things that you wanted to kind of hit while we're chatting?
If you need the best financing this side of the Mississippi, you got to call me. Yeah. Alex Nunemaker with Fitzgerald Financial.
Unfortunately, I'm just on the other side of the Mississippi.
Oh, man. Well, I'm sorry, I can't help you.
That's awesome. So the general questions are just super light.
Yeah.
What's your favorite book, whether it's current, whether it's of all time? Like, what would you read?
The most impressionable book that I read growing up was probably 1984, George Orwell.
Closet right over there.
The most recent one that I read that I really liked was Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow.
Okay.
And I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I think it's a good list.
What about TV shows?
I'm watching Reacher right now, which is way outside what I usually... I'm almost comedy exclusively, but Reacher is hitting some sort of like Rambo button in my mind that I really like, so it's just kind of fun watching some guy kick ass.
That's awesome. That's very cool. What about movie?
Favorite movie all time? Dumb and Dumber.
It's always good. What about like surprise movie that you just kind of watch maybe because your wife was like, we want to watch it, and then you actually really liked it?
It's got to be one of the kids movies. Right. I always go in with extraordinarily low expectations, and then I'm surprised that I come out probably Encantito. Yeah. I remember watching that and then having the song stuck in my head.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. Music, maybe of all time or recent.
Oh man, that is such a hard question to answer. Harder music, I'll say Every Time I Die. Growing up, Five Iron Frenzy, Rage Against the Machine. There's actually a picture. My old English teacher knew that I was such a big Rage Against the Machine fan that she would make clippings of anything that she found in magazines, and she would give them to me.
That's awesome.
And say, I'm sure that you would love to read about this. So shout out to Miss Burnett from South Carroll High School.
That's awesome. Just down the street here too.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What about like current music? Like any new releases you're excited about or caught recently?
I am loving the bands that came out of Every Time I Die after they broke up. There's Better Lovers and the other one, name is escaping me, but the split off of those two bands, I'm really curious to see the direction that those two kind of go, because it's almost kind of like a little bit of a uncomfortable war there, and there's a split along brother lines too, which is kind of interesting. So, and the most recent album that I have really gotten into is the new Sufjan Stevens, Javelin. Is awesome. Every time I listen to that record, I'm hearing something new. And if you read into kind of like the backstory of how he wrote that record amidst the death of his partner, and that was a revelation in and of itself, I think was interesting and sad, and carried a lot of different meanings to it. So I love that record. Yeah,
so I'm gonna say the newest Foo Fighters album. So I didn't really do a whole bunch of obviously I knew Taylor Hawkins had died, and I think I'd heard his mom died somewhere in there too.
Yeah.
And then I was listening to a Song Exploder podcast, which if you've never listened to that podcast, that's awesome. It's a guy that breaks down like recordings of songs and talks to songwriters about what they wrote about and then recording it and isolates everything. But he had Dave Grohl. There we go. Brain that works again. We had Dave Grohl in on a podcast episode, and the one song was just very obviously written about his mom dying, and he talked about it, and like especially with what I'm going through, like boom, slap in the face.
Yeah.
There's a lyric in that where it says, "And where will I wake up?" Then he was talking the story about his mom said she was really tired. And he said, "All right, Mom, go to bed." And she goes, "Well, where am I going to wake up?" Like, whoa. Wow. The other one that caught me out of the blue was Mumford & Sons, not Mumford & Sons, Marcus Mumford, his solo record that came out probably 3 years ago. That's the record you put on with headphones and just actually focus, like, wow. Absolutely wow. And neither of those are necessarily my genres, which is even cooler because that means that, like, they're really special.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, and then the last one, custom for you as a fellow bass player. Who's your favorite bassist?
Your typical answers are going to be Flea. You're going to be Les Claypool. I always go back to Timmy C from Rage Against the Machine because he was the one who got me really excited about playing bass. That tone was just nasty. Yeah. And honestly, the songs were just very accessible. So,
is he playing an Ampeg to get that tone? Do you know?
I actually don't know. Yeah, I'm so not a gear guy. Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like that was an SVT Ampeg or something. Yeah. Just
sounds
cranked.
Sounds probably right. Yeah. But yeah, from a nostalgia standpoint, I'm just going to say Tim Comerford from Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, so mine's is definitely more obscure. A band called Homegrown that never quite made it in pop punk world. Always kind of like on the verge of breaking, but the bass player for that band, Adam Lorbach, who now plays exclusively Christian music, he's a guitar player by trade, but he took guitar to the bass. And I was listening to a really great podcast, Armchair Experts, with Dax Shepard, and he had Billy Joe Armstrong on there from Green Day. They were talking about Mike Dirnt, and how Mike Dirnt was a guitar player that started playing bass, and he didn't want to do it.
I didn't realize that, but that makes so much sense.
Yeah, just
listening, like all of a sudden, oh, that clicks. That makes sense.
Yeah, so there was two guitar players, and then one bass player is a friend of theirs who didn't really know how to play bass, had like a dentist appointment because they were so young when they got together. And Mike Dirnt picked up the bass and just like nailed it, and they're like, you play bass now. He's like, I don't want to. But then the one buddy was like, that's fine. You're not a rhythm guitar player. You're a lead bass player. And that's the way Adam Lorbach was. That's kind of my style is like, I'm going to lay the rhythm down. But I've been known in recording to put two bass parts on a track. I lay the rhythm down and I play the lead bass.
Oh, cool.
So, but yeah, those are my two favorites. Anyway, awesome having you on. Really great, catching up, chatting with you. If anybody wanted to get a hold of you, what's the best way?
homeloanswithalex.com. It's got all my information. You can check out all my videos.
What's your Instagram handle as well?
Alex the Mortgage Guy.
Alex the Mortgage Guy.
Yeah.
I'll put all that in the show notes here. Thank you guys for listening. It's been Bird Seeds. Have a wonderful day.